Good morning, everybody. It is day 3 of our devotional series, and this time we are in Matthew 26, verses 6 to 13. And we have Jesus in the town of Bethany with his disciples, and they are at the house of a man named Simon, who Jesus evidently healed from leprosy. And whilst in Simon's house, Jesus is reclined at Simon's table when a lady walks in and pours a whole bottle of fragrant oil on Jesus. And this leaves the disciples completely unimpressed. I mean, when you consider some of the professions or the ex-professions of some of the disciples, you had former taxmen there, so they knew and appreciated the value of things. And obviously, they saw that bottle of fragrant oil as something that could have been sold and that money used for charitable cause. So they saw what Mary did as a waste. But Jesus points out to them that what Mary did wasn't a waste. And he highlights to them that, look, there will always be that opportunity to feed the poor and other charitable causes to be done. But the time that they had with him, they won't always have, and which is evident as he would go on to be crucified a few days later. So, what Mary did was effectively preparing for his burial, but it was also a form of extravagant praise. That pouring out of fragrant oil was a full pouring out of worship towards Jesus. And it just makes you think about, in our lives, what we prioritize. I mean, there's many things we seek out to do, many good deeds, many things in the name of God, but where do we put worshiping directly that name of God? And that's in terms of, our time, our resources, or even just our intentionality. What for us is pouring out in worship towards God? And, just coming back to impact, even coming back on impact and doing good things. You see, in round about verse 13, Jesus goes on to declare that Mary's act will be shared in her memory wherever the gospel is preached effectively. So you see that Mary's form of extravagant worship, that outpouring of worship, would also be used in future times to minister to other people, to minister to us. I mean, we're doing this over a devotional. You see that God, even as we go out and worship Him, and the priority is always just to give Him that glory, He can use that outpouring of worship as something that can impact others today. I mean, if you take Mary, her act of worship and outpouring of worship is an example of what we should follow in relationship. And I was just thinking about that. It just reminds me of, Matthew 6, verses 33, which says to seek the kingdom first and all its righteousness, and all shall be added to you. That sometimes not sometimes, all times we need to have worshiping God at the center, which is why I encourage you just to have, to let in your daily routine, let worship set the tone. Let it set the tone of how you live your life, how you go out and act. And you'll see it, I think, and God has that power to show us how our worship can then affect everything else that comes around us. And as we are in Easter and we're just focusing on what God did for us, I'd really encourage you to think on how you can further emphasize or further set the tone with worship in your lives. And that was day 3, and can't wait for day 4. And happy Easter and happy everything else that's coming.